All right, everyone. Well, welcome to our webinar this morning on branding yourself international and utilizing social media to grow your business. My name is Sean Christensen. I will be our webinar host today. As by way of introduction, I am the Director of Business Outreach and Community Engagement here at World Trade Center, Utah. And I reside in sunny southern Utah. It's about 61 degrees today at my office here in St. George. And I'd like to thank the St. George Area Chamber of Commerce, who has given me office space and has been kind enough to share with me as we have recently opened down here in Southern Utah. As all of you know, our webinar today is focused on how to brand your company internationally. And we have two experts in this arena that will be joining us today, and I'll be introducing them in just a moment. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about World Trade Center Utah. Our mission at World Trade Center Utah is to help Utah companies grow through our global programs, grants, and services. Our programs include things like Utah sponsored trade shows, where your company can join World Trade Center Utah and other Utah companies in a Utah space at an international trade show. At the show, we have a large space for Utah companies, and we provide an area for you to show your goods and services to the world. We also have trade missions where we take Utah companies to foreign countries and use the power of World Trade Center brand, as well as the integrity of the state seal of Utah and our vast network to open doors to contacts that would otherwise be almost impossible to reach. Through our grants, we're able to help offset the costs that are incurred by Utah businesses as they take their goods and services to the world. Beginning October 1st, we have over $1 million to give back to Utah businesses through the STEP grant that we administer for the SBA. These funds can help pay for international trade shows and growth-related travel, as well as help with localizing your website or updating it for SEO so that it can be promoted internationally to the countries that you're focused on. Through our global business services, we advise Utah companies on what countries are most suited for their international growth. We do this by using specific data to help our clients make educated decisions on markets that they'll be most successful in. And we help our clients to prepare for launch by advising on marketing, sales, risk management, website enhancement, and global logistics. We provide them introduction to vendors that we've vetted and that will help them prepare for a successful launch into these new countries. And we help businesses get landed in the markets that they've chosen through matchmaking, trade shows, and the trade missions I spoke about earlier. But that's enough about us. Let's take a moment to get to know our two panelists today. First, I would like to introduce you to Meg Bowen. Meg, are you there?
Hi.
Excellent. It's good to see you this morning.
Good to see you too.
Meg Bowen is the owner of Meg B Marketing. Meg went from producing a #1 lifestyle TV show to producing and managing social media strategies. She left the television world and now helps companies of all sizes make the most of their social presence. She's the owner of Meg B Marketing, a boutique social media agency that creates long-term content and strategy plans to bring purpose back into your social footprint. So thank you again for being on with us today, Meg. Would you mind
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Would you mind taking a moment to share a little more about yourself and about your company?
Yeah, I live in Cache Valley, so it's 43 degrees and cloudy today. So I'm jealous of your Southern Utah atmosphere, but I started my education at Utah State University and graduated in communications at the U. My career started at ABC4 in Salt Lake City as a producer for Good Things Utah. I was there for 6 years as the executive producer, and that's where I mention it because that's where I feel like I gained the skill of connecting content with audiences and coming up with things that resonate with people and juggling a lot of things. So that career, I built their social media. At the time, it was when TV stations realized, oh, we need to be on these social platforms as well. So when I saw that I had a knack for it and had those skills, I left that career to focus on Meg B Marketing full-time about 3.5 years ago. I moved back to Cache Valley. Like I said, I live here with my 2 children and my football coach husband. So Friday nights is football around here. And then I love a good work-life balance. So when I'm not working, I'm outside or reading a book, enjoying my time. So I'm definitely not a self-proclaimed workaholic or hustler over here. it's just kind of how I like it. So I'm excited to be here with everybody today.
That's excellent. It's great to have you on board. So when it is football, are you cheering for Utah State or the University of Utah?
I just feel like an Aggie. Even though I graduated from the U and participated there in some of their alumni stuff, I feel like a true Aggie. So that's where my allegiances lie.
Well, good for you. That's great. I'm a Utah fan myself. You know, it's a small world. You're with Good Things Utah, and our CRO, Aaron Starks, his wife, Carissa Starks, owns a baking company, and she's been on Good Things Utah many different times,
Oh,
had
awesome.
several different segments. So
yeah,
that's fantastic. Well,
I
thank
was
you.
well fed. I was well fed at that job. That's for sure.
I can imagine you were. Well, that's great. Well, our other panelist is Zach Sharples. Zach, are you there?
I am, yes.
Excellent. Okay, I see you. Perfect. Zach is principal creative and founding partner at Think Tank Creative Consortium. He is active in several roles to the benefit of the company, including accounts, sales, and management, creative conceptualization, art direction, and business forecasting. He began his career in commercial arts as a designer for the sport apparel industry, going on to develop creative and business abilities as a senior designer and art director within various organizations and industries. This broad experience polished his artistic instincts, honed his natural talent, and molded him into a creative problem solver, business leader, and advocate for long-term relationship building. Zach is an outspoken champion for a higher degree of transparency and rigor in marketing and design. So Zach, welcome, and it's great to have you with us today. Would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit more about your company?
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. If you're in St. George and you're in Cache Valley, I'm in the middle, sort of. So I'm in Salt Lake, right in the middle of Salt Lake Valley here in Murray, just off 4500 south.
I think it's 40 degrees in Logan. It's 50 degrees in Salt Lake, and it's 60 degrees in St. George. So it's like 10 degrees every few hours, right?
There you go. Yep. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I started this company with my business partner, Alan Parkinson. He's actually in the room with me. He's just not on camera. And we started this company about 20 years ago, believe it or not. And we're a boutique agency is kind of how we classify ourselves. So we have a lot of capability that the large agencies have. We're just a much smaller team. We sometimes attribute, we kind of tell our story a little bit by saying sometimes you can hire an army to come in and help you with your marketing efforts, or you can hire a Navy SEAL team, and that's more like us. So we actually work with Meg quite a bit. She helps us with a lot of our accounts, doing social media expertise. And that's kind of a little bit about our team. We have worked in a lot of different industries. Sometimes these agencies get kind of pigeonholed into one or two, but we've actually been very fortunate to have lots of different customers come to us. But we specialize mostly in building brands and helping to develop products, packaging, and getting goods sold, and helping to tell people stories. And so we are the experts on things that you need that are visual, and that's kind of what we do. So we really are a design agency with some good partners that help us with marketing, such as Meg, and other stuff like that. So that's a little bit about us.
I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. I really like the analogy you made between being a Navy SEAL versus the whole Army, and that's really fantastic. There's a lot of advantages to working with boutique agencies. I think the most of which is their knowledge around your brand and the service that you guys are able to provide through that.
Yeah, we think that helps us be more in touch with what those customers specifically need, because you're going to get access to principals such as myself and Alan. And we've got longer term accounts and longer term employees that have been with us for quite a while. And so it helps us with having that personal touch. And, we don't have all the overhead, so we're a little bit easier to kind of come in and be needed for just the parts that people need, and not necessarily come in to take over, as it were.
That's great. It's great. I notice your car's in the background there. Are you a car
Yes.
aficionado, or?
I am. That is my little guilty pleasure and habit. I'm a car guy. My I'm wearing my Aston Martin shirt today. So
That's great. Well, hopefully there's one in the parking lot that you can go jump in after this and have a fun ride. So
I do have an older one.
that is cool. Well, we're going to have to see that at some point. Next time I'm up in Salt Lake, maybe we go for a ride. That'd be great.
I'm a James Bond nerd as well. So
excellent.
we can play the soundtrack and you can pretend like you're James Bond.
I'm in. Count me. I'm in. All right. Well, let's begin our panel. And there are a few different questions that I want to touch on today and a few different subjects, obviously all around international branding and social media. But the thing I want to begin with is what's on most people's mind for the past year and a half. And really, it's been COVID and the pandemic. This has really changed the way that a lot of businesses now market themselves and how they're reaching customers. So my first question is how has COVID changed the online marketing environment for businesses? And Meg, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so I remember last year, this big statistic of the average user time spent on social media just like skyrocketed, which I think we can all resonate with that. Like we were all home, we were all working, but also just like bored and disconnected. And so we all jumped on social media. We saw that huge rise in TikTok because of COVID, but I found a statistic over 3.6 billion people were using social media worldwide in 2020. And the increase average of US specifically went from 56 minutes a day to 65 minutes a day, which the average, when it goes up that much, you can tell it was quite skewed. So there was more shopping, there was more interacting, and those trends are here to stay. So people got used to that habit of being online more, on shopping more, and getting things delivered more, that those things that became a necessity in 2020 and 2021 are not going away. They're now going to become the norm and the expectation for brands to deliver to me, to be online with me, that sort of thing. So it changed everything and it's not changing back, essentially.
Yeah, I know we've heard several stories, and one particularly stands out to me is a bike company that had launched just as COVID started, and that bike company had to take in and totally adjust their business model because they were going to be a physical location. Obviously, that wasn't possible, so they started consulting people online about bikes, and they would meet with them, they would show them the bike, they would have a Zoom meeting to do all of that, and built a really, really successful business off of that. They had to change very quickly, though, and adjust for that. Well, thank you for your answer there. Zach, same question. I'll turn that over to you.
I really kind of echo a little bit of what Meg has already said, but yeah, I mean, if we were already, 1 foot in on, making some changes and pivoting as a world market towards more online sales and finding audiences and social media and stuff, man, COVID was definitely the hammer that brought that home. I'll share one little story that I have on that is I have a friend who works at eBay, and she'd mentioned to me how they saw a huge uptick in traffic, both from buyers and retail sellers coming into eBay and using eBay as a channel, even because what they found was a lot of people were bored at home and they were kind of wrestling with the emotions of what was happening, and they were, believe it or not, buying up all these like collectible baseball cards and Pokemon cards and Star Wars figures, all these collectible things that made us feel good, had a huge uptick in eBay, and that became a channel that people were even looking at. So it's not even the usual places like Amazon and Walmart.com that people were going to. They were going to all kinds of places.
Yeah. I had read an article recently in Utah Business Magazine talking about the jump in collectibles and how that's just totally changed, and how obviously the prices have risen as well, right? The demand's gone up, and the value for those items has gone up significantly. So yeah, that's great. What a great example. Go ahead.
And I do love that the effort that so many business, because they had to change on a dime. It was like March 13th, we all had to be like, what's going on? Like, at least here in Utah. And I love that those efforts and that creativity that all you business owners put in wasn't for nothing. Like, you can still use those and build off of those. Like, it was worth the while of getting through, and all of your creative ideas and amazing things you guys all did, like, you can still keep doing, which is nice. It's not like you did it for a year, now you have to revert back, and all that hard work was kind of a waste. But so you can hold on to those good ideas and just keep rolling with them.
Well, Meg, I think one thing really poignant that you had mentioned is that it's not going to go back, right?
Yeah.
The world has shifted, and now there's a way of doing business. That doesn't mean that it won't shift again as things free up and we get a better handle on the situation. But that's a really great point, that the talents and things that people have learned over the past year and a half, they're going to be applicable for a really long time. All right, well, this brings us to my next question, which is based on the ever evolving world of marketing and branding. One thing we've learned, and I've been in marketing for a lot of years, more than I'd like to admit to, and one thing I've noticed over that time is that something that worked 3 years ago or just a few years ago may simply not work today. So Zach, we'll start with you on this question, but how has branding your business internationally changed over the last 10 years?
Well, yeah, I wish I could say that I work for Ford. I don't, but I have worked for Shelby Automotive out of Las Vegas doing Shelby Mustang stuff. But
that does not shock me.
Yes, but I'll use a sort from there. So to answer your question, I think one thing that we see the most, and maybe this is because we do visual execution and graphic design, but we've seen brands come into us either wanting to change their branding to be more world-minded, or they're coming into us day one saying, we want to be a global brand. We want to be seen as a single global brand. Whereas in, being 20 years old, as I first came into this industry with my firm, there was lots of focus on, we want to localize our designs to these areas. And now companies are saying, we don't want to do that anymore. We want to be a global brand, we want to make this one product or this one thing, or these several things. And we want the world to see us as a unified single brand. And Ford's doing the same thing. They used to make like 70 different vehicles, and now they're just focusing on their 12. And they're making everybody buy the same cars to see the same things, because they realized that Ford is a global brand, and why not offer the Mustang in the world, to the world, whereas before you weren't able to do that. So we see that happening in branding, where we see companies coming into us saying, what do we need to do to be a global brand? And there's extra work that has to be done there. You have to be sensitive to your cross-culture connectivity and stuff, and make sure that you're not being offensive in words and terms that you're using. And sometimes colors can have meanings and stuff. So you just have to be extra mindful, and basically you got to hire a good firm and a good tour guide to help you navigate those waters, as it were.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more challenging to go international than a lot of businesses might think. And the strategy and the plan ahead of time is really what sets you up for success, versus going to another country or going into a market out of sheer convenience.
Yes.
It's funny you mentioned, colors or words may not translate across. I think there's the famous example of the Chevy Nova did not sell well in Mexico because it meant no go. And so definitely things you've got to be aware of when you're growing your brand internationally. Meg, I want to bring the same question over to you, but change it just a little bit. What have you seen changes in branding yourself across social media in the last 10 years?
Yeah, so when I think of this, my first initial thought from like a social media perspective is it's so accessible, and it's so not easy but simple for social media, because you have these global users and you have tools within the apps themselves, like translation tools that, I run into something cool that it's in a different language I don't speak. I can simply hit the translation button and I get a general idea of what that post is about. And so I actually found, let me see if I grabbed a graphic because I'm such a visual person, but it shows how global social media is, which I think we know that, but it just goes to show how you can brand yourself. Here, I'll show this and stop talking. Okay, can't do two things at the same time. So social media use around the world. So there's 4.4 billion users. 56% of 56% of the population is on some kind of social platform. The number of global users goes up by 13% annually. People using it on their phones, almost 99%. The average amount a day is 2 hours. So it's not only possible, but it's happening whether you're planning for it or not. And so when you're able to have a strategy that brands yourself as somebody who does ship internationally or is in a new market, it's easier than you might think. You don't need to create brand new pages. You don't need to create this whole new established presence somewhere else, although there are certain platforms, you know, in Europe and Asia that they don't have in the United States that you would want to keep in mind. But if you brand yourself here, you're going to easily be able to expand that branding internationally without a lot of adjusting, I guess, is like the ultimate answer. But I get excited about it because it just, like one of my clients, they're here, they're based in Utah, they ship from here, and they have clients from all over the world that buy their toy. And we've never once intentionally marketed worldwide, but it's found. Mothers connect in groups worldwide, you know, friends and people like within their own little niches of interest. You're connecting with people around the world. So your business is just going to naturally find its way over there.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. Claire Adair, she had made a comment in the chat, and I appreciate your comment, Claire, which is definitely important to look at translation and localization as you communicate internationally, so you speak their language. And I think what I would add to that, Claire, is that authenticity is a big part of that.
Yes.
You need to know your brand, and you need to know who you are and what you stand for, and then find a way to mesh that into the cultures we grow in. Social media is a great way to do that. I can't think of a better way to show personality of a company than through social media. There was also a request by Dean Martinez to make sure that we shared the contact information for the panelists. So Meg and Zach, when you get a moment, if you wouldn't mind dropping your contact information in the chat, that would be fantastic. All right. So one question that we get quite often at World Trade Center Utah is that as we help businesses grow internationally, there's concern around protecting their intellectual property, their IP. And so the question I have for you guys is how do I protect my brand as I start to grow internationally, which dovetails into the last question we talked about. But Meg, we'll start with you on that one. So how do I protect my brand as I grow?
I think with anything, as you're starting to grow into an area like intellectual property that you don't understand, finding somebody who does understand that and letting them help you. We don't all have to be an expert in every single thing we do in our business. And I think we can all agree on that. And so as far as protecting your brand on social media, there's things you can do to help mitigate the potential, but there's really no way to completely avoid somebody using your content or starting up a fake account or spamming. And there's ways to manage it if it happens to you. But I would say if you're concerned about the protection of your brand, then go find somebody who protects brands and they can help you, if that makes sense. I hope it's not a cop-out answer, but I think that's one that we could all use.
I don't think it is at all. I think in our culture here in Utah, we're very much a culture of I can do this on my own. If I put in the effort and I do what's right, everything's going to come together for me. And oftentimes we don't look to the experts and the tools that are out there. And a lot of time and even money can be saved if you use an expert in the arena rather than try to figure out yourself. Go to somebody who already understands it and make a good plan for you. Zach.
I was just going to say, there's important to remember for social media specifically, there's terms of agreement and use for those platforms that you do need to be aware of. And so if you don't legally understand what you can and can't do, you know, with contests or like promotions or working with other brands, then you do need to get with an attorney who's really familiar with those terms of agreements, just to give you like an overall, here's what you can and can't do, because not every brand is doing it the right way, and they will get docked for it and fined for it and potentially get their accounts shut down. So don't just look at other brands and say, well, they're doing that, does that mean I can do it? Because that's not always the case.
Yeah, you certainly don't want your company to end up in Facebook jail, right?
Yeah, exactly. Facebook jail is the worst. Nobody wants to be there.
I know it. All right, Zach, the same question over to you. How do I protect my brand as I grow?
Well, I mean, we've already sort of touched on it a little bit, but really my mind just goes to, you know, the trademarking and filing for registration marks and stuff like that you have to go through. And it's just one of those things where, you know, in startup mode here locally in Utah, oftentimes we see companies that will come in and they've got, you know, these visions and dreams, and we say, okay, well, it's fine. We can start with this name, and we can start with developing this product and this package, but you really need to be hiring some good legal firms that can help research your stuff and make sure that you are protected, because the world is becoming a smaller place. It's becoming a much more visible place. You used to be able to hide and sort of get away with things, but it's getting a lot trickier to do that now. And so there's a lot more competition and a lot more accessibility to information. So it starts by, you know, reaching out to the U.S. Patent and Trade Office and registering your trademarks and patents and protections of things here in the United States. And then upon receiving that, it's then going into your different markets and registering those in those respective countries as well. And you got to be careful of that for sure. And then the last piece of that is just the hard work that it goes into just keeping an eye on it, both online as well as physically, policing your brand to make sure that there isn't abuse happening, where, you know, part of the responsibility of having your trademark is that you have to also police it. You have to be able to go after those people who are violating it and protect it, because protecting it is the other part of keeping your trademark and your registration.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's interesting there is that having an expert that can guide you through that is really going to save a lot of headache. And understanding if the patents you filed, what countries they're applicable to, and what do you need to get before you grow elsewhere, or even protecting yourself before you grow, so that in the future, when you do grow to another market, you already have, you know, your trademark and everything registered, and it can't be stolen by others. So
yeah, we have customers that use all kinds of their own attorneys. Some have their own in-house counsel. Some of them have their own companies they've been referred to before they even come to us. But yeah, we recommend that you find a legal team and be ready for that. It's not as daunting as it sounds. It's not even as expensive as it may appear or seem. You shouldn't be afraid to do it. It's just a good measure. It's one of those necessary things you have to do when you start a business.
Yeah. Vic has a great comment in the chat about the medical manufacturer that he works with. They shipped over 80 countries, and they face a lot of obstacles for each country, right? And
especially medical.
Yeah. I like your comment though, Vic. Although painful and expensive to register products, it helps protect the brand and reduces risk overall. And so it's definitely worth the time, the investment, to make sure that you're covered as you grow. So another thing to think about is that not everybody does everything perfectly. And a lot of times we learn from our mistakes. And so, Zach, can you share with us some common mistakes that you've seen as businesses grow internationally, and what pitfalls to avoid?
Well, I'll probably share with you, maybe this will seem like the most obvious, the most kind of one, but I share it because it's the one that we see the most, unfortunately. And that is, you know, you don't want to fall for the old we call it the field of dreams credo, where it's like, if we build it, they will come. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. It oftentimes does not. And so really what we see is that you can sit down, you can have a great idea, you can have an original idea, it can be very niche, and we can help make it look beautiful and execute on amazing packaging and amazing branding. And we can go out and really wow and impress some people, but you still have to have your sales channels. You still have to have a sales strategy. You still have to know your customer, how to reach them, and where you're going to park this. And you have to have a plan. Unfortunately, my company doesn't offer sales channels, because if we did, I'd be building products 24/7 and just putting them out and making money that way. So you really have to, believe it or not, just because you have an idea doesn't mean that it's going to work. You have to also have legit sales channels in place and a strategic plan, at least on how to launch.
Marketing is not sales.
Yes.
Marketing, not sales.
And Meg will get you lots of eyeballs on products through social media, but you still have to be able
sell
to
them, yeah.
convert and turn those into translated dollars. So I'd say just focus on understanding that, like, prototyping and stuff is easier than ever now to make things look real and to test things. Do that. Don't spend a lot of dollars up front building your product and building that field of dreams completely and then sitting around and hoping that it's going to work for you. You see this through Kickstarters and things like that. Get your idea out there, get your concept out there so people can see it and they can get their mind around it so it has its best shot. But then definitely move into sales mode and start figuring out how to get sales channels opened up and started.
I like your comment on Kickstarter. I know of a company here in Southern Utah that even though they're an established company, a lot of the new products that they launch through Kickstarter. Yeah. And it really acknowledges, I think a lot of people think, well, Kickstarter's for when you're first starting your brand in your company, but it's not. They use it in a fantastic way to test the market and see if they have product market fit. So Meg, over to you. What are common mistakes that you see businesses make as they brand themselves on social media?
There's several that you're just kind of like, let me help you. Come here. I think my first initial instinct answer is they don't know their audience specifically enough. But then specifically on social media, they don't understand the platforms and the users of each of those platforms. Every platform is very different for demographics. Every platform is very different on the strategy of what you're posting and when and where and how and what are you saying and how are you saying it. And just to look at somebody and say, oh, they make millions on their Instagram account, I now too can make millions on my Instagram account. Again, it doesn't work that way. And so I think they see social media as this golden ticket. Number one is a huge mistake. They don't have any sales channels. They haven't done any market research. They don't know who their audience is. They don't even know if this product is something somebody wants. So it all just kind of culminates together on social of, but if I have an Instagram page, like people will buy my stuff. And that's just not, and I think that's both local and internationally. Again, if you have a audience here, it doesn't mean it's going to resonate internationally. You have to now go do that work and research and testing before you just expect to open up to the world and get really well received.
Yeah. Well, I think if you can dance well on TikTok, that helps also, right?
TikTok, don't even get me started.
Oh, well, that's good stuff. Well, so that actually leads into my next question, which is, they say that when you're branding, you should know your buyer. And so, Meg, we'll start with you on this one, but what advice can you give to business owners as they build their ideal customer profile?
I want you to keep an open mind when you're researching, because you might go in thinking you know who they are and what they want from you. But as you're testing, and you might notice, oh, what I want to post and what they want to see, or what I want to make and what they want to buy is not the same. You might have to pivot and adjust and really let go of that dream baby love child that you've created and kind of adjust it into something that somebody wants to buy. So just keep an open mind. Just go into this research of like, here's what I think, but I don't know. And then take that research and kind of with a really curious mind, be like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize, I thought it would be for 25 plus. It looks like 14, 15-year-olds really love it. Oh, I don't really want to be in that market. Well, like, too bad. Now you get to sell the 14-year-olds, So I think not putting yourself in this like box before you get started is key.
Okay, that's great. That's really great feedback. Zach, what are your thoughts around building an ideal customer profile?
Well, kind of to build on what Mae was saying, I would echo the same and say, sometimes your customers find you, and that becomes what you are, or what you will be known for. We see that sometimes even in things like the music industry, right? You get artists who start one way and they try this album or they try this song, and it sort of pushes them in a direction. All of a sudden they're a pop star, and they didn't want to be that, but that's what they get known for. Same thing kind of happens with companies sometimes in their products and the audiences that receive them. But one thing we could do, maybe going in up front, is that and playing in social media and world we live in today, I think that brands need to be more aware of looking and feeling as authentic as possible. And so I think that there's now more than ever a due diligence needs to be done for finding your customer profiles by engaging with starting up like consumer advisory committees made up of real customers, spokespeople, or brand ambassadors, and maybe like they said, be open to who you bring into that group so that you're not pigeonholing all in just one type, and maybe start to put together a little bit of a focus group, as it were, to help guide and bounce ideas off of. And don't be afraid to engage them early, because it may shape decisions as you go. The other one would be remembering to engage with social media influencers early on and getting their ideas and their takes on things, because they are the channel. They have audiences built in already. With that, you also have to remember that, again, you might have an influencer who has lots of eyes on them, but maybe not as much engagement. You really want to kind of be careful to work with influencers who have high engagement, because they're going to be really plugged in. They'll be both finger on the pulse of what is hot and what is happening, and give you good feedback, but they'll also, believe it or not, become a sales channel to open up. If they've got high engagement, you might start seeing sales coming through just that referral. So it's a good time.
Along that line, what recommendation do you give to your clients as they're looking for social media influencers? Like, how do they identify the right influencer?
Man, you know that, yeah, take that one, Maggie. It sounds like you got it.
Oh, I'm like, that's a whole other beast too. And I get so apprehensive about recommending influencer marketing, because there's so many programs and companies that are offering the very wrong and worst way to do it. So to find authentic influencers like Zach is talking about is a lot harder than you might think. But where you start is it's like building your avatar. What is your customer reading? What is your customer watching? Where does your customer shop? It's the same thing of who does your customer follow, and figuring that out and kind of creating, okay, you have the big giant influencers like celebrities and just the big mega names. You probably can't afford them. So then you're kind of like, okay, so I can't afford Jennifer Aniston, but maybe 4 levels down, like who is similar to that? Not celebrity, like you really want to find. Anyway, so you have to kind of figure out like, what tier am I ready to work with? Because they do require a budget. Influencers do not take free product very often. They're going to want to get paid cash and some kind of percentage of your sales. Some of them will only take an affiliate, but again, those influencers are starting to transition very much into, this is my business and you have to pay me to work with me. So the days of I want free stuff, that was 2017. Like, you can't do, it's really just not realistic anymore. The people who just want free stuff don't have a platform for you anyway. So it's a big, complicated thing that if you can do it right, I've had clients that make $100,000 in one day from one influencer. Like, that's the dream, but it doesn't happen all of the time. And so that's just like, I feel like a whole other class of how to work with people, but it is my kind of like, be careful getting started, because you can lose a lot of money and a lot of product if you do it the wrong way.
Great. Yeah, just a couple of comments on what you said. First off, I didn't realize when I first got into marketing that A, B, C, D-list actors were actually and celebrities were actually a thing until I was working with a marketing agency and we were looking for a spokesperson for our brand. And they're like, well, you guys can afford about a C or a D-list. And they provide us names. And I'm like, I'm recognizing these names and I'm thinking, oh yeah, okay, makes sense now. So I didn't realize those were literal lists. The other thing is that I think one thing along those lines, I have a friend who works for a CBD company, and when choosing their social media influencers, and that's the biggest way they market their brand, they found people who aligned with what they do. So they use a lot of MMA people that promote their brand over social media. They also use people from X Games, and so extreme sports figures are the ones that they use to promote their brand, because that's what they want to align with. So I think there's a lot of thought and interesting things that go into deciding, who do you use as an influencer. Okay, well, let's jump a little bit more into social media and talk more about that. It seems like we've gone down that avenue a little bit already, but what is your first recommendation, Meg, when you meet with a client? What's the first recommendation you give to them about building their brand on social media?
We want very clear goals of why you're on social media outside of making money. And we want those goals separate from each platform. So why are you on Facebook? Who are you talking to? What does success look like to you? Why are you on Instagram? Why are you on Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest? And you have to do that with every single platform, and then have a specific strategy for that platform. So what you post on Pinterest doesn't go on Instagram. What you post on Instagram doesn't go on Facebook. And honestly, you don't probably need to be on all of them. Very few companies need to be on every single platform. So I think it's important to have very specific audience. Like, I speak to this group on Instagram, but I speak to this group on LinkedIn. They're very different, and your content you're putting out needs to be different. And if you don't do it that way, then none of them will really work. So know the goals. I mean, the social media, you can build a community, you can have a platform, you can show off your product, you can like your portfolio, establish your credibility. There's different things and kind of goals for each platform, and sales is always part of that. It's not that you never can expect to make money off of it, but outside of that ultimate goal, why else are you on that platform?
Great. You reminded me of a book, and that's why I turned around. I don't know if you've ever read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, but you kept saying, understand why you're doing this.
Yes.
I'm not here to promote books. It just reminded me, when I first read that book, I was like, you know what, that's incredible. Like, I think a lot of times we do things without understanding why we do them, or why people use our product, or what's the ultimate goal we have. So
and
that's great.
I think we sometimes forget that that's actually a really big and important question that you'd need to be really clear on. And yeah. It's not a small, like, oh, I'll figure that one out later. Like, you're wasting, in my opinion, you're wasting your time on social media, your time and money on social media, if you don't have those questions answered.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Well, we're winding down a little bit on time here. We have about 15 minutes left, and there are a couple other questions that I wanted to get out there. So Zach, when somebody is going international, your recommendation, what comes first? It's like chicken or the egg question here, but is it website or social media presence from the way you see things?
Well, I'm going to be a little bit biased here because Meg does the social media stuff and I do the web stuff. But I mean, the answer is you really have to do both, because they're really two different things that work hand in hand. So, but I always say that you have to have a website. You have to have a home base. You have to be able to have a place where people find you online, that it gives you your credibility and social proof that you exist. And it's where you transact your dollars. I mean, it's your place. So it is an integral part of developing your sales funnels and stuff. So to me, website is typically, if you're going to have to put one first, you kind of got to start with that. It is now the brick and mortar store that you have to begin with online. And so it's just important to remember the differences that, websites are, it's where you're found. It is that social proof and that credibility proof, and it's where you do things. But social media really is where you go to find your audience and how you expose your brand and how you reach new customers and encourage interaction with your brand and bring in some of that authenticity. So they're two different things, and both really are needed.
Can you give a little insight to the folks that are on the call today about what it means to localize a website? Localization, as they refer to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I guess first and foremost, it's translating your text and having different language options and those subtleties in dialogue and stuff that take place in different countries to make sure that you're not being offensive. you're saying the right things. If you have product that is not globally minded, but is specific to different markets, then of course they need to see those. And so it's not uncommon for large international websites to have those language buttons that you switch to experience a different to display a different user experience and to communicate different photography and or text that goes to that. So
yeah, it's more than just plugging in a Google Translate and saying, "Hey, we're good to go," right?
At that level, you're definitely you don't want to have that jokingly, the Utah mentality. I'll figure it out myself. No, you do need to hire a localization company to translate your text correctly for that.
Great. So Meg, do you agree? Is it website first, or do we go to social media first? I'm stirring the pot here.
Well, I know. I would say, of course, social media, but I also would say if you have like a very small budget or like bandwidth, do a very simple landing page website and then go build your social media. Because I do agree that you need both. The cool thing about social media is your Facebook, your Instagram, your Pinterest, you get to live on Facebook's SEO, which is like unmatched. Like you're coming up on the front page with your Facebook page while your website might not pop up. So it's important to remember the power that social media has in bringing you into those web searches, that if you have the right keywords and the right bio and the right handle for your social, that kind of adds to the organic search feature of Google, for example. I think you can have a very simple landing page website and a rockin' Instagram page, and like Instagram's doing more for you. But that's just because that's what I get paid to say.
Well, but I think it's a fair argument, right? And a lot of time budget does play into these things. And we know that social presence often is very inexpensive, right? But I agree with both of you. I know I sound like a politician saying that, but I really do. I see advantages from both areas. I see social media driving a lot of the activity and the eyes on the product. I see websites converting those to sales. And so I think that's great.
And it's important to note the trend. Social platforms like Facebook is obsessed with online shopping right now. So everything they're doing and every new feature, they're so like world dominant mind that they don't want you to have any reason to go anywhere other than Facebook ever again. And so they're trying to bring all of these features from your website onto a Facebook page. Like let's have chat, let's have shop, let's have literally everything. So it's important to remember and notice those features of how can I take advantage of them as they're newly getting rolled out, because Facebook's going to start pushing that out more. So get on Facebook Marketplace, like optimize those things, because they're taking over the world, whether we like it or not. So just kind of ride that train and optimize your pages, and you'll see some results from that too.
Yeah, I think use that to your advantage, right? So Claire has a question. I want to make sure questions coming in from the group are answered here. And so I'll read the question off, and then either one of you can jump in to answer it. But Claire's question is do you feel like there's a difference? Oh, Kyle. Oh, okay. Sorry. Gosh, I don't know why I was saying Claire. I'm sorry, Kyle. Do you feel there is a difference between B2C and B2B on how important a social media presence is?
Yeah, if you're B2B, you need to be on socially on LinkedIn. That's your social presence, is LinkedIn priority, and any other platforms that may pop up. But yeah, or honestly, if I'm a service provider and I want to work with other service providers, there's communities on every platform to do that. But LinkedIn is where I mostly spend my time. I have a fun, like 400 followers on Instagram, because that's not where my ideal audience is, right? So I hang out on LinkedIn. So there is a difference, and the strategies are very different.
Yeah. Yep.
Zach, anything to add there?
No, she's exactly right. And this is why when people say, I need a social media expert, we say, well, let's introduce you to Meg.
Great. Okay, I have a couple more questions, but also folks, if there's a question that you have, please post it in the Q&A section or even over in the chat. We'll find it either way. And I'll promise not to mispronounce too many more names. Sorry about that, Kyle. Let's just jump back. The last question I have for you, Meg, is what would you recommend to business owners as media to be aware of or have a plan for in the next 3 years?
So when I saw this question, I immediately just thought of video, integrating video into your strategies. It's not going anywhere. And you really need to figure out a process and a system and a content plan of how can I bring video into my business? Again, whether B2C or B2B, start now thinking about it so you have the content, you can start budgeting for it, because video is kind of the future. I mean, if the photo sharing app now says it focuses on video, like that's it right there. That kind of shows you where the world is going, digital marketing, social media wise, is to video. And it sucks. Like, I hear you, nobody wants to do it, but we all have to do it.
Yeah, well, that's great advice. All right, Zach, over to you. Do you have an example that you could share with the group about a brand that you've helped drive their growth and who's been able to grow internationally through their branding?
Yeah, one of our favorite little case studies, and I just think they're a fun little company, is Harvest Lane Honey. We met them about 6 years ago and rebranded their company and did some packaging for them as they were struggling with $250,000 a year in annual earnings to try to become a backyard beekeeping honey hive maker, with sites of trying to get their products into companies like Tractor Supply Company and IFA and stuff like that. So the idea was like kind of like a chicken coop, but with beehives. We thought it was a fun little company. They were working out of the Army Depot, and we helped prepare them for an important trade show that we knew how to position them. We knew that their customer was Tractor Supply Company, which is owned by Walmart. And we knew how Walmart selected product to go on their shelves because we had done that before with a toy company. So we just prepared them the same way as we did that toy company. And they were seen and they were selected. And 6 years later, they're now with Tractor Supply Company, and they're like a $12 million company. And they want to expand into Canada and South America. And that is new, literally as we speak. I think last week I was translating boxes into trilingual global world boxes and packaging for these honey hives and stuff going into those markets. And so that's kind of an example of doing some localization translation into packaging for those markets, because the demand and their brand has reached a place where they were asked to do so.
Yeah, thinking about their journey, first they own their backyard, they found a product market fit, and were able to sell here domestically, and now 95% of consumers are outside of the United States, and now they're opening up this whole new world for them. So that's fantastic. Well, I want to give just a few minutes here for any additional questions that might come from the audience. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. So again, feel free to type those into the Q&A or also over into the chat. Kelly, yes, we will email out a recording of this so that you can have that. I know we've covered a lot of information. We'll be happy to send that out. And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I'd like to give you guys an opportunity for parting thoughts. So Zach, we'll start with you. Any parting thoughts for the group today?
This will be my shameless plug, but if any of you guys out there are in need of or know of somebody else that needs help in their visuals, in their branding, and their storytelling, and their packaging, and their product development, that's what we're here for. And we can help make you look like $1 million, and then we can engage you and introduce you to Meg, and Meg will help you make the $1 million.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. And thank you so much for being on today. Meg, anything you'd like to share before we go?
Yeah, I just add Zach and Alan's team, they do a beautiful job. Everything I've ever seen from them comes through just wonderfully. So I echo handing stuff over to them to help you out. As for Magdy Marketing, we help with like total account management, content copywriting, just calendars if you want to be the one posting and hanging out on your social channels. Or I also do like consultation calls. So I find that the most helpful social media advice comes very specifically to you. And so we can jump on a call for an hour and talk about your business, what you need right now, what you need in the future, and you can leave that call feeling a little bit more confident about what you need to do next for social. So I'm happy to chat with you and help you out along the way, or just do it for you. So
my recommendation to everybody on the call today is if you don't know, there are experts out there who do, and great people like Meg and Zach are here to help your company, and the investment you make with companies like theirs are going to save you a lot of money in the long run. If you're interested in contacting them, their contact information is in the chat. My contact information is there as well. If you'd like help on finding foreign markets to grow into and understanding the great wide world of trade and how you can grow into other markets, we are more than happy to help you over here at World Trade Center, Utah. Meg, Zach, thank you guys so much. You're amazing. I appreciate your time today. Everybody, thank you for attending and have a wonderful day. We'll see y'all later.
thank you. See ya.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Go
Bye-bye.
Aggies.